The massive alien vessels hung in Earth's sky like dark promises of death. For 3 days they had remained silent, their hulls gleaming with an oily darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. The world below had ground to a halt as 7 billion humans stared upward, waiting for something, anything. To break the terrible silence, Captain Sarah Chun stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the Earth through reinforced windows. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman in her 30s with short black hair and eyes that seemed too calm for someone facing potential extinction. She held a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold, forgotten as she studied the alien formation. "Still nothing on the communications array," reported Lieutenant Morrison, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "They're just, sitting there." Sarah nodded slowly. Around her, the station's crew worked with nervous efficiency, monitoring sensors and maintaining communication with Earth's various defense networks. Not that their defenses would matter much against ships that size. Each alien vessel stretched nearly 10 kilometers in length, dwarfing humanity's largest battleships. "Ma'am," called Ensign Rodriguez from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Harrison wants to speak with you directly." Sarah set down her coffee and walked to the communication terminal. Admiral Harrison's weathered face appeared on the screen, the stress of the past 3 days evident in the deep lines around his eyes. "Captain Chun," the Admiral said without preamble, "we need you back on Earth now." "Sir, with respect, my place is here coordinating. Your place is where I tell you it is, Captain." The Admiral's tone brooked no argument. "There's been a development. The aliens have made contact." Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. "What kind of contact, sir? The kind that mentions you by name?" The shuttle bay of Luna Station hummed with activity as Sarah prepared for her departure to Earth. Her personal effects were minimal, a single bag containing her few belongings and a locked case that she never let out of her sight. She'd carried that case for 8 years, through 3 different assignments, and no one had ever asked what was inside. They knew better than to ask Captain Sarah Chun about her secrets. During the 2-hour journey to Earth, Sarah stared out at the stars and remembered another time, another place. The memory always came unbidden when she was stressed: the red sands of Kepler 442b, the screams that had echoed across the alien landscape, and the terrible silence that followed. She touched the scar that ran along her left temple, a reminder of the day she'd learned what she truly was, Earth. Defense Command headquarters bustled with frantic energy when she arrived. Officers hurried through corridors with grim expressions, and she could hear the constant chatter of radio communications coordinating global defense networks. Admiral Harrison met her personally at the main entrance, something he'd never done before. "Walk with me, Captain," he said, his voice unusually quiet. "What I'm about to show you is classified at the highest levels." They took a lift down to sub-level 7, deeper underground than Sarah had ever been. The corridors here were different, older, with that sterile feeling of places that housed dangerous secrets. Guards checked their identification 3 times before allowing them to proceed. The briefing room was small and windowless, dominated by a large holographic display. As Sarah took her seat, the display activated, showing a 3-dimensional image of the alien fleet. But it wasn't the ships that made her blood run cold, it was the transmission log displayed alongside them. "Play the message," Admiral Harrison ordered. The hologram shifted, and suddenly the room was filled with an alien presence. The creature was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that shifted between deep purple and black. When it spoke, its voice was a harmony of different tones, as if multiple beings were speaking in perfect unison. "People of Earth," the alien said, its words somehow translated into perfect English. "We are the hegemony of the 7 suns. We have come to deliver a warning that your species must heed." Sarah leaned forward, studying the alien's features. Something about its posture, the way it held its upper arms, reminded her of prey animals trying to appear larger than they were. The message continued. "Your species has produced an abomination, a creature that defies the natural order of the galaxy. We have tracked her across 17 star systems, following a trail of destruction that spans 43 worlds. She is among you now, hiding in plain sight. But we will find her. Sarah's hand moved unconsciously to her temple, tracing the old scar. We know you call her Captain Sarah Chun. You do not understand what she truly is, what she is capable of. But we do. We have seen entire civilizations reduced to ash in her wake. We offer you this final warning: surrender her to us, and your world will be spared. Refuse, and we will take her by force, even if it means cleansing your entire planet of life. The message ended, leaving the room in heavy silence. Admiral Harrison watched Sarah's face carefully, but her expression remained unchanged, the same calm mask she'd worn for 8 years. Captain, the Admiral said slowly, is there something you'd like to tell me? Sarah stood and walked to the holographic display, studying the alien ships with professional interest. How long until their deadline expires? 18 hours. Sarah, I need to know, what do you know about the Kepler 442b incident? She asked, cutting him off. Admiral Harrison frowned. The exploration mission? That was 8 years ago. The official report said the colony ship encountered a hostile alien species. Only one survivor. He stopped, his eyes widening. You. The official report was largely accurate, Sarah said, her voice eerily calm. We did encounter a hostile alien species. They attacked our colony ship without warning, killed 317 people in the first hour. The survivors tried to fight back, but we were explorers, not soldiers. We had no weapons, no training. She turned back to face the Admiral, and for just a moment, he saw something in her eyes that made him take an involuntary step backward. The aliens hunted us for sport, she continued. They would wound colonists and let them run, then track them down for the entertainment value. They had been doing it for centuries, finding peaceful species and using them as prey in their twisted games. How did you survive? Sarah smiled, and the Admiral felt ice form in his veins. I learned to hunt them back. Before the Admiral could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, and the intercom crackled to life. All personnel to battle stations. The alien fleet is moving. Repeat, the alien fleet is moving. Sarah and the Admiral rushed to the main command center, where dozens of technicians worked frantically at their stations. The main display showed the alien ships breaking formation, beginning a slow descent toward Earth's atmosphere. Time to deadline? Admiral Harrison barked. Still 14 hours, sir, replied a technician. They're not waiting. Sarah studied the display, noting the aliens' tactical formation. They're not planning an invasion, she said quietly. This is a hunting formation. They're coming for one specific target. You, the Admiral said, double quotes. Yes. Sarah turned to him, and her expression was completely serene. Admiral, I need access to the restricted armory, and I need you to evacuate a 50-kilometer radius around wherever they land. Captain, what aren't you telling me? Sarah reached for the locked case she'd been carrying, her fingers moving across a complex biometric scanner. The case opened with a soft hiss, revealing contents that made every person in the command center take a step back. Inside the case, nestled in custom foam, were what appeared to be weapons, but not like any weapons they'd ever seen. They seemed to be made of the same black material as the alien ships, but they pulsed with an inner light that hurt to look at directly. These belong to the hunters who killed my friends, Sarah said, lifting one of the weapons. It felt warm in her hands, responding to her touch like a living thing. It took me 6 months to track down their base, another 3 months to kill them all. I kept these as ... souvenirs. Admiral Harrison stared at her in shock. You killed an entire alien species? Not the entire species, Sarah corrected. Just the ones who made the mistake of hunting humans. There were about 12,000 of them on Kepler 442b. It was very thorough work. The main display suddenly filled with incoming transmission alerts. The lead alien ship was broadcasting again. Play it, the Admiral ordered. His voice hoarse. The same alien appeared, but this time its posture was different, more agitated, almost frantic. Sarah Chun, it said directly to the camera. We know you can hear us. We know you have the weapons of our fallen brothers. But you cannot hide forever. We are the hegemony. We rule 17 worlds, command 1,000,000 ships. You are just one human. The transmission cut to static, then resumed with what appeared to be a different alien, its skin darker and more mottled. She killed the hunting pack of Kepler 442b, this one said, its voice carrying undertones of fear. 47 of the greatest hunters in hegemony space, gone. We found their base nothing left but ash and shadows. And in the center, written in their blood, a message: humans are not prey. Sarah set down the alien weapon and walked to the communications console. Open a channel to the hegemony fleet. Sarah, what are you doing? Admiral Harrison asked. She ignored him. Activate. The hegemony ships landed in the Australian outback with the precision of surgical instruments. Each vessel touched down exactly 50 kilometers apart, forming a perfect triangle that enclosed nearly 8,000 square kilometers of red earth and scattered vegetation. Satellites showed the aliens deploying. Immediately, thousands of figures in dark armor spreading out from each landing zone like ink bleeding across parchment from his position in the emergency command bunker beneath Canberra. Admiral Harrison watched the tactical displays with growing dread. The evacuation had been as complete as possible on such short notice, but there were still scattered research stations and remote settlements within the aliens' perimeter. More importantly, Captain Sarah Chun had refused to evacuate. Sir, we're receiving reports from forward reconnaissance drones, Lieutenant Morrison announced, his voice tight with stress. The aliens are deploying what appears to be sensor arrays, massive ones. They're scanning the entire grid square by square. Admiral Harrison nodded grimly. The aliens were being methodical, professional. They weren't here for conquest or destruction. They were here for one specific target, and they intended to find her no matter how long it took. Any word from Captain Chun? Negative, sir. She went dark 6 hours ago, last position approximately 30 kilometers inside their perimeter. On the main display, heat signatures moved across the landscape in organized patterns. The alien search parties were efficient, leaving no stone unturned as they systematically combed through every cave, every gulch, every possible hiding place in the rugged terrain. Sir, called Ensign Rodriguez from the communications station. We're receiving a transmission from the lead hegemony ship. On screen. The familiar alien appeared, but its posture was different now, more confident, almost relaxed. Behind it, Harrison could see what appeared to be a command center filled with sophisticated tracking equipment. Admiral Harrison of Earth Defense Command, the alien said, somehow knowing exactly who it was addressing. We have landed as promised. Your Captain Chen has gone to ground somewhere within our search perimeter. But it is only a matter of time before we locate her. The alien leaned forward slightly, and Harrison caught a glimpse of what might have been satisfaction in its alien features. We want you to understand something about your hero, Admiral. The creature you call Sarah Chun has destroyed 43 worlds across our space. Not conquered, destroyed. Entire biospheres reduced to lifeless rock. The Kepler 442b incident was not an isolated case of self-defense. It was the first time she revealed her true nature. The transmission shifted to show holographic displays, images of dead worlds, barren landscapes, the remnants of once thriving civilizations. Zarian Prime 2 billion inhabitants, gone overnight. New Valdris, an entire system sterilized. Kethmer Station, 10 million beings reduced to ash in the space of an hour. All by one human female who your species considers a decorated military officer. Admiral Harrison felt his blood turn to ice. That's impossible. One person couldn't... One person? Yes, that would be impossible. The alien's expression shifted, and Harrison saw what might have been fear in its multiple eyes. But Sarah Chun stopped being merely human 8 years ago on Kepler 442b. She became something else. Something that should not exist in an ordered galaxy. The transmission cut to black, leaving the bunker in heavy silence. Around him, Harrison's staff exchanged worried glances, but no one spoke. The implications of what they'd just heard were too enormous to process. Sir, Morrison said quietly, what if they're telling the truth? Before Harrison could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The main tactical display erupted with new contacts, but these weren't from the aliens. "What the hell?" Harrison began. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from within the search perimeter," Rodriguez reported, his voice cracking with stress. "The readings they're unlike anything in our databases." On the display, the organized alien search patterns suddenly became chaotic. Heat signatures that had been moving in perfect formation were now scattered, some fleeing, others converging on a single point near the center of the perimeter. "Can you isolate the source of the energy signatures?" "Working on it, sir." "Got it. The source appears to be?" "It's moving, sir. Moving fast. Current speed approximately." "This can't be right. What's the reading, Ensign?" 300 kilometers per hour, sir." On foot, Harrison stared at the display in disbelief. The energy signature was indeed moving at impossible speeds, leaving a trail of disruption as alien search parties either fled or were simply eliminated. What had been an orderly hunt was rapidly becoming a rout. A new transmission came in, but this one wasn't from the Hegemony command ship. It was from one of their ground units, and the quality was poor, filled with static and what sounded like weapons fire. "Under attack." She came out of nowhere. "Repeat, the target is..." The transmission dissolved into screams and the sound of energy weapons firing at full power. Then silence. "Sir," Morrison said, his voice barely a whisper, "we're detecting weapons fire throughout the search perimeter. But it's not random, there's a pattern to it." The tactical display updated, showing the locations of weapons discharges. As Harrison watched, he began to see what Morrison meant. The pattern of destruction wasn't random at all, it was systematic, intelligent. The alien search parties were being eliminated in a specific order, starting with those closest to the perimeter and working inward. "She's cutting off their escape routes," Harrison realized aloud. "Trapping them." Another transmission came through, this one from a different alien unit. The voice was high-pitched, panicked. "Command, we've lost contact with sectors 7 through 12. Request immediate extraction." The transmission cut off mid-sentence. On the display, another group of heat signatures went dark. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, his face pale as he monitored incoming signals. "We're receiving multiple distress calls from Hegemony units. They're requesting permission to retreat." But the alien command ship wasn't responding to the retreat requests. Instead, it was broadcasting on all frequencies, its message reaching every human monitoring station on Earth. "Sarah-chun," the alien commander's voice echoed through the bunker, "we know you can hear this. We are prepared to withdraw our forces if you surrender yourself immediately. We have no desire to engage you on your homeworld." The response came not from any human communication system, but from one of the alien units on the ground. The voice was unmistakably human, unmistakably female, but it carried an edge that made everyone in the bunker step back from their consoles. "Too late for negotiations," Sarah-chun said, her voice crystal clear despite being transmitted through alien equipment. "You came to my world, threatened my people. That was your choice." In the background of her transmission, they could hear sounds that shouldn't have been possible, the distinctive whine of alien energy weapons. But also something else. Something that sounded almost like laughter. "How many of your hunting packs are left?" Sarah continued conversationally. "I count maybe 200 signatures still active." "You started with, what, 3,000? The alien commander's response was immediate, broadcasting on all channels. "You are one individual against the might of the hegemony. We have orbital support, advanced weapons, superior numbers." "You had superior numbers," Sarah interrupted. Past tense. "And your orbital support can't fire without hitting your own people." "As for advanced weapons..." There was a pause, and then a new sound came through the transmission, the unmistakable hum of alien technology. But wrong somehow, changed. "I've been using your brother's toys for 8 years now. I've made some improvements." The energy signature on the tactical display suddenly spiked, climbing to levels that should have been impossible for any individual to generate. At the same moment, 3 entire alien search parties simply vanished from the sensors. "My God," whispered Morrison. "What is she?" Admiral Harrison didn't answer because he didn't have an answer. The woman he'd known as a competent, unremarkable starship captain was systematically dismantling a force that had conquered 17 worlds. And she was doing it alone. The main display updated again, showing the remaining alien forces converging on the 3 landing zones. They were regrouping, forming defensive perimeters around their ships. It was a sound tactical decision: concentrate their forces, use their ships' superior firepower to create killing fields. "Smart," Harrison murmured. "They're going to make her come to them." But even as he said it, the energy readings from Sarah's position began to change again. Instead of the focused spikes they'd been seeing, the signature began to spread, diffusing across the landscape in patterns that made no tactical sense. "Sir," Rodriguez said, confusion evident in his voice, "the energy readings are fragmenting. It's like she's multiplying." On the display, what had been a single energy signature suddenly became dozens, then hundreds. Each new signature moved with the same impossible speed, the same lethal efficiency as the original. "That's impossible," Morrison breathed. "She can't be in multiple places at once." But the evidence was right there on their screens. The alien defensive positions, which moments before had been secure fortifications, were now under simultaneous attack from dozens of different directions. The heat signatures of alien soldiers began. The transport helicopter found Sarah Chun sitting quietly on a boulder overlooking the wreckage of the alien fleet. She looked exactly as she had 6 hours ago when she disappeared into the Australian outback. Same uniform, same calm expression, same unremarkable appearance that had fooled everyone for 8 years. But the landscape around her told a different story, where 3 massive alien warships had landed. There now remained only twisted metal and slowly cooling slag. The ground itself had been transformed. Red earth turned to glass in perfect circular patterns that extended for hundreds of meters in every direction. And scattered throughout the area were the remnants of alien technology, weapons, armor, communication devices, all fused into the landscape as if they had been part of it for centuries. Admiral Harrison stepped out of the helicopter, followed by a full squad of Marines. They approached Sarah cautiously, weapons lowered but ready, though everyone present understood that conventional weapons would be useless if she decided they were a threat. "Captain Chun," Admiral Harrison called out as they drew near. Sarah looked up and smiled, the same professional smile she'd given him 1,000 times during briefings and progress reports. "Admiral, I trust the evacuation went smoothly?" Harrison stopped 10 meters away from her, studying her face for any sign of the creature that had just dismantled an alien invasion force. There was nothing. No hint of the power that had carved through 3,000 alien warriors like they were made of paper. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we need to talk." She nodded and stood, brushing dust from her uniform. "I imagine you have questions." "That's an understatement." Harrison gestured to the devastation around them. "The energy readings we detected, the way you moved, the way you multiplied. What are you?" Sarah began walking toward the helicopter, and the Marines instinctively parted to give her a wide berth. "I'm still human, Admiral. But I'm also something more now. Something that became necessary 8 years ago when I learned what the galaxy really contained." As they walked, she began to explain, her voice carrying the same matter-of-fact tone she used for mission reports. "The creatures that attacked our colony on Kepler 442b weren't just hunters, Admiral. They were parasites. Their entire species had evolved to feed on the life force of other sentient beings. They would hunt prey species not for food or territory, but because the act of killing intelligent life literally sustained them." Harrison listened in growing horror as Sarah described the 3 days she'd spent hiding in the caves of Kepler 442b while her friends and colleagues were systematically hunted down. On the 3rd day, they found my hiding place. I was the last human alive on the planet, and they wanted to savor the experience. Instead of killing me quickly, They began the ritual feeding process, drawing out my life force slowly, feeding on my terror and pain. Sarah stopped walking and turned to face Harrison. For just a moment, her calm mask slipped, and he saw something that made his blood freeze, not fear or trauma, but a cold, calculating intelligence that belonged to something far removed from humanity. But humans are different from their usual prey species, Admiral. We're adaptable. And when pushed to our absolute limits, we don't just fight back, we evolve. She resumed walking, her pace steady and unhurried. The parasitic feeding process was meant to drain my life force over the course of several hours. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Instead of being drained, I began to absorb their energy. Their technology, their biological enhancements, their genetic memories, all of it flowed into me. "That's impossible," one of the Marines muttered. Sarah glanced at him with amusement. "Is it? You've seen what I can do, Sergeant Martinez. Is anything really impossible anymore?" They reached the helicopter, and Sarah paused before climbing aboard. The aliens made one critical error in their assessment of human biology. They assumed we were like every other species they'd encountered, limited, predictable, bound by the normal rules of biological development. They didn't understand that humans are the ultimate apex predators, not because we're the strongest or fastest, but because we adapt to become whatever we need to be to survive. As the helicopter lifted off, Admiral Harrison watched the devastation shrink below them. "So you became like them? A parasite?" "No," Sarah said, her voice carrying an edge of what might have been pride. "I became something far worse than a parasite. I became a predator that feeds on predators." She opened her locked case again, revealing the alien weapons inside. But now, Harrison could see they weren't quite the same as they'd been hours before. The metal had somehow fused with human technology, creating hybrid devices that pulsed with an inner light. Every hunter I killed on Kepler 442 made me stronger, smarter, more dangerous. Their knowledge became my knowledge. Their abilities became my abilities. By the time I'd finished with them, I had absorbed the collective experience of 12,000 alien warriors. And the other worlds? The 43 planets the hegemony mentioned? Sarah's expression grew distant, as if she were remembering something from long ago. I followed their ship logs, traced their hunting routes back through space. Each world they'd attacked, each species they'd exterminated, I found evidence. Entire civilizations reduced to nothing more than feeding grounds for parasitic predators. She touched one of the hybrid weapons, and it responded to her contact by shifting its configuration, adapting to her needs in real time. So I hunted them. Every single hunting pack, every breeding colony, every military installation they'd established. It took me 6 years to track them all down across 17 star systems. And with each group I eliminated, I absorbed their collective knowledge and capabilities. Admiral Harrison felt a chill that had nothing to do with the helicopter's air conditioning. "You committed genocide?" "Multiple genocides. I eliminated a parasitic species that had been feeding on intelligent life for over 50,000 years. Sarah corrected matter-of-factly. A species that had destroyed thousands of civilizations, and was actively planning to do the same to Earth? If that's genocide, then I'm proud to be a genocidal maniac." The helicopter began its descent toward Earth Defense Command headquarters, and Sarah prepared to disembark. But Admiral Harrison caught her arm, then immediately released it when he felt the barely contained energy that flowed beneath her skin. "Sarah," he said desperately, "what happens now? What are you going to do with all this power?" She looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. "What I've been doing for the past 8 years, Admiral. I'm going to protect humanity. The hegemony wasn't the only predator species in the galaxy, they were just the most aggressive. There are others. Ancient empires that view younger races as nothing more than resources to be harvested. Machine intelligences that see biological life as a contamination to be cleansed. Psychic parasites that feed on entire star systems." The helicopter touched down, and Sarah gathered her equipment with practiced efficiency. They've all heard rumors of what happened to the hunting packs, but they dismissed it as impossible. One human couldn't possibly pose a threat to galactic civilization. She stepped out of the helicopter and looked back at Admiral Harrison one last time. They're about to learn how wrong they are. As Sarah walked toward the command building, Admiral Harrison noticed something he'd never seen before. Where her feet touched the ground, the concrete seemed to change slightly, not damaged, but somehow enhanced, as if her very presence was transforming the environment around her. Inside the briefing room, Sarah stood before a gathering of Earth's highest-ranking military officials and world leaders. They'd been hastily assembled via secure video links, and every face on the screen showed the same mixture of fear and awe. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah began, her voice carrying easily to every corner of the room, "today's events were just the beginning. The hegemony was a minor threat compared to what's coming. In approximately 18 months, a species called the Harvester Collective will arrive in our solar system. They've been observing us for the past 50 years, waiting for our population to reach optimal levels for harvesting." She activated a holographic display that showed star charts and tactical information that shouldn't have existed in any human database. 2 years after that, the Eternal Empire will send a conquest fleet. Their standard protocol is to eliminate 90% of a planet's population and enslave the remainder. 3 years later, the Void-Touched will attempt to use Earth as a breeding ground for their psychic larvae, which will consume the neural energy of every living thing on the planet. The room was silent as world leaders absorbed this information. Finally, the President of the United States spoke. "How do you know all this?" Sarah's smile was sharp as a blade. "Because I've absorbed the memories of creatures that have been monitoring these threats for millennia. I know their plans, their capabilities, their weaknesses, and I know how to stop them." She walked to the center of the room, and suddenly everyone present could feel the energy radiating from her, not threatening, but impossibly vast, like standing next to a barely contained star. "But I can't do it alone. Not because I lack the power, but because Earth needs more than one predator to protect it. The transformation that happened to me on Kepler 442b can be replicated. The alien technology I've accumulated can be adapted for human use." "We can?"